This video will cover the Graze mobile suit from Iron-Blooded Orphans. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at what's in the box. We've got our typical cover art right from the anime, showing the figure in action. And then this is an HG of the Iron-Blooded Orphans line. And this is the second one in the line. And then on the side here, we've got the figure in some poses, both on action bases and without action bases. And it shows some of the articulation and such like that, where pieces can move to and such. And then, it'll show the pilot. Looks like it's going to be a consistent thing that happens with the Iron-Blooded Orphan line, is it's going to show you the pilot. Unfortunately, everything is in Japanese for the most part. There isn't a lot of translation to the English. This is a model that was done in 2015, and the Bandai may not have started giving the English equivalents everywhere in the manual like they did in later times. So, take a look at the manual. We've got, a lot of the artwork is reproduced in the manual. And we have here the runners. And it looks like, by looking here, that none of the runners are ABS. So when we do customizations and panel lining, we don't need to worry about what we use, because we don't have to worry about anything eating the plastic, which happens with ABS. And then we've got the instructions here to go through the various sections, just like most builds happen, where you start with the body and head and then move on to arms and legs and then your torso and waist. And then you have a section, normally the color section is how to put the whole thing together, and the backpack at times. And then you would have the weapons and such. So normally there's at least a couple of pages, even on HG, that have the color pages as well. And then on the very back, you'll get some more posing photos. Actually, it does look like some of these are the same ones, but the more important thing is you have your color guide in case you want to do full painting. You then have the color guide. And the color guide, unfortunately, is in Japanese. If you look online, you can find translations for the color guide. You can just type in your model name and say color guide, and it will direct you to a color guide that is in English. So like the Barbatos or other models in the line, there are some color correcting decals. Now, the ones like this one right here, this circle one, this is going to be something that goes underneath like a clear piece. So normally those I will use just as is, but these other ones are just here so that you can have some coloration in some of the places where, just to show a little bit more detail, like the yellow. If you see here, there's yellow on the face, and that would be one of these strips. So since these are pretty simple and they're a single color, I will most likely not use the strip color correction labels, but what I will do is I will paint those areas instead. And the nice thing is that we see we got the yellow mix that they use here, which doesn't always happen with the color correcting colors. They're not always included in the guide, and this one it happens to be. Looks like the primary colors are going to be kind of a true gray and this military green. And the trend that I'm seeing in several of the Iron-Blooded Orphans model sets is that there seems to be a inner frame like structures in them. So these dark, the true grays seem to be the inner frame and weapons. They're not true inner frames, but they act like an inner, that they kind of mimic the inner frame where, the gaps between the armor shows. And then in the other color, which in this case is the military green, these are your armor pieces that then get put on top of the frame. They all get put in together, but that's kind of the way that the things look. And the frames are the inner parts are a bit flatter with the Iron-Blooded Orphans, I've noticed, than with the, like the other, like the original Gundam and stuff like that, the Universal Century Gundams and such, where, they do have equivalent things like this, where they're showing what is in the gaps between the armor, but they're bulkier looking. And I think it's just the aesthetic of Iron-Blooded Orphans. So, A is our armor, and then our two, we've got two D runners, which are the inner frame and weapons in the same color. And then we've got the feet. And I did notice that the feet in Iron-Blooded Orphans are much more interesting than some of the other ones, because you've got, like in this case, you've got one with almost like a high heel. Sometimes you have claws, stuff like that. So this is just like a darker green, a darker military green. This is our B runner. And then the C is for highlighting certain areas. It looks like these probably are cables, or simulation of cables and such like that. And then just like any other HG, you do have your polycaps to handle articulation points, which is a softer polyethylene plastic, and this is a pretty typical polycap runner. A little bit softer plastic, stuff like that. So that covers the Graze for as far as the runners in the unboxing. We have here the Graze Commander type mobile suit from Iron-Blooded Orphans. This one is, the Graze is probably the equivalent of the Zaku from the original, the original UC line of Gundam anime and manga. This is essentially the enemy mobile suit, the basic one. This is the commander type because it's got the antenna on top. You can have this kit here. You could do it as a standard where it just has a head without the antenna on it, but otherwise it's pretty much all exactly the same. So, like most Iron-Blooded Orphan kits, there is a fairly unique silhouette and form that they're using. As you can see here, what's common with a number of the kits is you kind of have the high heel look for the feet. The waist is somewhat slimmer because the waist is essentially just made up of the inner frame without any bulky armor or anything like that, showing being around it. The armor mainly is on the waist, the legs, and the arms. So we've got a couple of accessories with it. It's got a heat axe, which is kind of the equivalent of the Heat Hawk for a Zaku. And then it has this really nice, very nice gun on it. Pretty good size, a lot of detail with 2 clips on the side. The only thing that's kind of a pain in the butt is that in order to get this on there, the hand is right here in the middle. And in order to get it on, you've got to take off one of the clips in order to take the hand off or put it back on. In the back here, it's also got these kind of thrusters here with the wing parts. In the animes, these tend to bend. These don't bend. These are stationary. But I believe what it is, it's to kind of use as stabilizers when the thrusters are engaged. There are actually 2 sets of thrusters that you can have. You have this one which connects to the top of the back. There isn't really a traditional backpack. I guess you can say that the thrusters are the backpack. Or they have this one here, which are just kind of connected together, and they kind of pivot independently here, and it kind of goes right here in the hip, in the back of the waist. You could actually put both of them on at the same time. I don't think that's the way it's portrayed in the anime, but however you want to do it, you can have actually both of them on there. But normally it would be one or the other. And here's the heat axe. It can clip. Whoops. It can clip right on to either side on the hips, and it's just a standard axe that can be held. And it's one that you don't even have to take the hand apart to put on. You can just hold it on to there as an additional weapon to be used. The articulation for these is actually, I'm just going to take the gun off just so that I can not have to worry so much. There we go. The articulation is pretty standard for an HG kit. In this one, though, the elbow it's a single joint elbow, but it can actually bend slightly better, a little bit more than 90 degrees. It's got the shoulder armor, which can be folded out of the way, which seems to be typical of the Iron-Blooded Orphans suits. And so then you can actually, the shoulders can kind of go up more than just 90 degrees. You have it twists here. If I had the wrist still on, it would twist at the wrist. The knee has a double joint, so it can go all the way back. Now, the front skirt, unlike with other ones, doesn't move. So your hip joint is kind of limited in its movement because this doesn't move out of the way here. And the ankle is, the foot is just kind of a back and forth twist slightly. It doesn't have some of the articulation that you would expect of the foot. It's just completely, it's not split, so it's not like you can do the heel and the toes separately. It's all together. And the waist can go back and forth or forward. The hips can, and the waist can kind of go backwards and forwards. Can't really turn at the hip. And the head basically just has a ball joint there, so it's back and forth, side to side, and it can turn. One nice thing about the head is you can actually open it up. Whoops. You can pull this forward and that up slightly, and it will reveal in there the kind of singular eye right there. So that's pretty cool. And that's whether you're using the commander type head or the top, because really the only difference between commander and standards, this top piece is different. Either it has a slot for the antenna or it doesn't, and the standard one is a little bit rounder. It's not as angular at the edges here. Let's put that back on. This is pretty much out of the box complete. The only thing I did to this is that I did do some panel lining. There's not a whole lot of panel lining on this because everything is just very angular. So there's a little bit of panel lining. Most of the panel lining is actually on the inner frame, which isn't necessarily visible all the time. There's a little bit right there on the knee and such like that. And the other thing that I did is there were some color correcting stickers. So instead of using the stickers, what I did is I actually painted instead the same color as the stickers. So that's what these gold bits are. Is these would have been stickers, but I painted them instead. So here on the chest, the right there, and then the eye I did it painted, and then I used some black to panel line around the gold as well. So that's all painted. As you can see, it looks like, at least for I've only done a couple of Iron-Blooded Orphans so far, but each one has the issue where, as you're posing it and stuff, certain pieces do fall off. This one isn't so bad. Many times it's the hip and the waist that come apart, so this hasn't happened so far yet. But it is definitely one of those things where, as opposed to a toy, where once you build this, you're going to be playing with it as a toy. This is more of once you've built it, you're just going to choose a pose, and you put it on your shelf, and maybe take it down a couple of times from time to time to repose it, and then put it back on your shelf. One thing that is pretty also common with these Iron-Blooded Orphans mobile suits, the kits themselves, is that there's very few accessories, especially like weapons-wise. Like here, we've got a gun, and we've got the axe. And the reason for that is that the Iron-Blooded Orphans line has separate arms set, not arm as in the arm, but arms as in weapons and other attachments that can be made. So they're expecting people to buy the other sets that add additional things to the mobile suits, so that you can reproduce all the scenes and all the various weapon configurations that you see in the anime. The nice thing about the arm sets is that the arms in there and the accessories in there can fit on any mobile suit normally, because they're all universal, pegs and holes and stuff like that. The other nice thing about the arm set is that they do include, normally each one includes a mobile worker, and it's a different mobile worker in each set, because there's so many different types of mobile workers in the Iron-Blooded Orphans universe. So overall, I do like the aesthetics. It does match very well with the other Iron-Blooded Orphans mobile suits out there. I would give this a B+, mostly because, even though I do like the aesthetic and I think it's a hefty, well put together and well designed mobile suit and kit, the fact that you get so few accessories, and you only get one hand set, the only hands you get is grasping, and the fact that as you're manipulating it, pieces do start falling off and such like that. That's why I'm giving it a B+ instead of a higher grade on this. But it is a good kit to put together, even if you're a beginner. You don't have to have a lot of experience with Gunpla or other, putting together other models in order to pick this up and put it together and come up with a good result. And you don't even have to worry about the painting. You can just use the color correcting stickers that came with it, because they would be fine. I just didn't like the way they looked, so I decided to paint them anyway. So that's about it, and thank you very much for listening, and I will see you on the next one. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, please do give it a thumbs up. That really does help out the channel. And if you would like to see more like this, please go ahead and subscribe and click the notification bell. If you do have some time, I would really appreciate it if you could watch one of the videos that are popping up around my head.